All right, hello everyone. Everyone's kind of come in through the waiting room. Thank you for joining us tonight for the Virginia Production Alliance Industry Summit, sponsored by the Virginia Film Office. And tonight's spotlight is on film festivals. So tonight we've got some great guests with us. And starting with our sponsor, Andy Edmunds, who's the director of the Film Office and a frequent guest to the festivals, some of the largest festivals in the nation and in North America, trying to drum up business for, of course, Virginia and the Commonwealth. Next up, we have Jody Kevin from the Virginia Film Festival. If everyone wants to just kind of give a quick wave, so you know who's who. And then we've got Heather Waters from the Richmond International Film Festival. We have Enjoli Moon from the Afrikana Film Festival. And from the Proteus Film Festival, we have Bart Kuebler. Welcome, everyone. We're going to try to keep this to an hour, but feel free to use the chat function on the screen, and so that we can get your questions in for the Q&A. And so I'm Michael Ivey, by the way. I'm the president of the Virginia Production Alliance this year, and we're just going to go ahead and kick it off with some questions. So, of course, thank you all for taking time out. It's a really busy time for a lot of your festivals that are coming up. Some of your festivals start next week, so I know how hectic it could be. But just going around the room, can you please describe your festival and when it's occurring this year, just to give a quick summary of what you're all about. So let's start with Jody.
Sure. The Virginia Film Festival is in its 34th year, which is absolutely amazing for me to believe. And this will be my 13th Virginia Film Festival. It takes place in Charlottesville, Virginia. We are part of the University of Virginia. We're a large regional film festival that will run this year, October 27th through the 31st. Normally, in a year that is not besieged by COVID, we would be screening about 200 films and have about 150 guests, independent filmmakers, well-known actors and actresses and directors and producers. In the past, we've hosted most recently Spike Lee, Christoph Waltz, Ethan Hawke, Colin Firth, Meg Ryan, really an incredible host of filmmakers. We've got a remarkable board that is made up of former UVA alums that have forged significant careers in the film industry, that is led by Mark Johnson, who of course produced most of Barry Levinson's films like Avalon, Good Morning Vietnam, won the Academy Award for Rain Man, and has produced Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. We featured narratives in docs, shorts, independent films, high-profile studio films that are also in contention for Oscars every year, and we have really robust attendance, between 25 to 30,000 in attendance, and we really pride ourselves, being part of the University of Virginia, on the discussions. Most of the films are briefly introduced by a professor from the university who's expert in the subject matter of the film, and there's some incredible discussions immediately following. And so I think that kind of sums up the Virginia Film Festival.
Great, thanks, Jody. Heather.
Hey, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me. It is an incredibly busy time, but an exciting time because our festival is coming up next week. So we kick off our 10th year anniversary a week from today. And our festival has been around for 10 years. We started off very, very small, and a few short films and a little bit of music. And now we're at about 160 films from 20 different countries, 25 different countries. Over the years, we've kind of expanded because part of our mission is not just to be great host to filmmakers around the world and filmmakers here in Virginia, but also to help, facilitate deals behind the scenes so that we can get folks back to Virginia to shoot their next project, record their next album, whatever it is, because we want to put production money right back here in Richmond and throughout the state. So that's something we're very passionate about. And we also do things like the Flow Collective Conference, where it's a 2-day full industry session, panels for writers, producers, directors to show their work. That's an incredibly great opportunity, I think, for a lot of our Virginia filmmakers, because when these folks do come back, and a lot of them have throughout the years, they're going to remember the names and the faces, and they're going to be in need of a great crew. So we love to see a lot of our VPA members out to that. This year's going to be particularly great. We've got about 20 panelists coming in from around the country. There's still a few seats left on Saturday and maybe 5 or 6 on Sunday. So it's a great time to jump online and check that out. Other than that, we're all about Virginia. This year is super cool because we're putting a huge spotlight on Richmond and Virginia as a whole opening night. And so we're excited about that, along with all the remaining 5 days of the festival. There's lots of stuff to see and do. So we hope to see everybody there.
Thanks, Heather. Enjoli.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Enjoli Moon. I'm with the Afrikana Film Festival. Afrikana actually started back in 2013. We started just as a monthly, once a month screening at different galleries all along the city. We would bring one short film, one filmmaker, and it allowed us to see just how interested Richmond is in this idea of Black diasporic cinema. And it turns out that Richmond was really excited about the idea of being able to have narratives that we often don't see in mainstream media brought to their city in a way that was personable, hospitable, and that allowed people to connect. The support that we were able to garner through those monthly screenings has kind of snowballed over the years into a host of other programming. We have our Evening with an Icon, where we've had the pleasure of bringing people like Sonia Sanchez and Angela Davis. We have our Starry Night Cinema, which is our outdoor film series. We have Movies and Mimosas, which is like a brunch lunch series, cinema series. And then in 2016, we were able to launch our multi-day film festival. And so there we started to essentially bring people from really kind of all over the world. We had Black filmmakers from all across the country, people representing different continents, descend upon Richmond and kind of take over the arts district for 3 days. And there we would screen short films, feature-length films, have panels, workshops, parties. Our film festival is not a festival for the film purist who just wants to sit and watch movies for 12 hours straight. We definitely like to bring some texture into the experience. We see this as a community building opportunity and an opportunity for people to be really introduced to Richmond, those who are visiting, to understand like just the different, number one, the historical significance of this space in terms of the Black narrative, but also just like the warmth and the good energy and the importance of this space in the contemporary sense, because a lot of times Richmond gets overlooked. So we create spaces for that. This year, we are celebrating our six-year anniversary. So we had the interesting fortune of celebrating our 5-year virtually last year, which didn't allow us to do what we wanted to do in terms of how we showed up in community. But in turn, we were able to have people from all across the world, hundreds of people, about 12 different countries represented, showed up virtually, which was really exciting. And so as we go into our 6th year, we are acknowledging that, we still are in the midst of a pandemic. And so we are going with a hybrid model this year. Kicks off on September 16th. We'll have some outdoor screenings. We'll also have some virtual experiences that people can plug into from the comfort of their own home. And so we're really excited about that. As I said, as a part of our festival, we really want to introduce filmmakers to the landscape of Richmond and the importance of it historically. And some of those experiences have led to filmmakers to come back to Richmond and actually shoot their films here. And so it's been exciting to see Richmond kind of stay on the minds and hearts of people as a result of Afrikana. And we look forward to what that means as the festival continues to grow. So we ask that you mark your calendars for September 16th through 19th. Join us. You'll be able to check out our website for passes starting on Friday. So looking forward to seeing y'all there.
Hey, thanks, Enjoli. Bart, with the Proteus Film Festival.
Hi, I have to start by saying just thanks for asking us. We are such a small, young startup film festival that I feel honored to be included in this company alongside these much more accomplished and experienced producers of this. And I may reach out to you because you guys have been through the things that I am going through now as we unexpectedly grow. To give a little background, Proteus Festival is produced by the Ziders American Dream Theater, or what we call in Southeast Virginia locally, We're the Z is the name of the theater. It's an awkward name. It comes from our chief benefactor in the early days of the company, a guy named Mike Ziders, who put up a lot of money with the vision of creating a theater that would focus on new works and emerging artists, and that's what we do. We accidentally started a film festival 4 years ago when we had the grand opening of our theater. We were reaching out to all kinds of artists in different areas, and we said as part of that, well, why don't we show some short films and reach out to some local creators? And the first year, 4 years ago, was primarily people that we kind of had an extended network. We reached out through some folks that we knew in our local chapter of the VPA. They submitted a bunch of films. We partnered with Regal Cinemas. We showed them there. As we thought about it over the next couple of years, we realized we have a great venue in our theater to show films, so we started doing that. So as I kind of started with, we did not think that we would continue with the film festival. Then we found that it was a lot of fun to do, and that because our theater's mission is to focus on new works and emerging artists, we could start a film festival that also focused on early career filmmakers. And there's definitely a thirst among the filmmaking world, I think, for short films and for showing short films. And so we've fallen into showing that, even though we are asking every year for feature-length submissions. We're not a big enough festival yet to get a lot of those. But we are showing this year, beginning the same day as Enjoli's festival on Thursday the 16th. We are showing this year 10 short films and 2 features. That's all that we have over the following 3 weeks. So everything is from a Thursday through Sunday. You can come to the theater. We have thrown in a couple of panel discussions with a few folks. Our biggest guest is John Tollins, who is a screenwriter and playwright, currently based out in California, but wrote The Twilight of the Golds, which ran on Broadway about 20 years ago, and then has since migrated to a bunch of other film and TV stuff. We are, as I said, a growing festival. We just, this might be kind of funny. I will, to everyone here who I just feel is much more experienced in the film space, the film economy, the film world. I come from a music background and then a theater background. And that's really what I focus on doing. So it was this third year of the festival was the first year that I became aware of a film freeway, for example, as like, this is a common industry thing. So we fell into this backwards, like I said, but it's been great since then. And look for us next year. We'll be hitting our 5th year, and I'm hoping to finally hit our stride as we hit this 5th year and figure out a plan for it. Because as I said, when we started off, we didn't intend to do a film festival. Then we did one, and we thought, well, this was nice to do one year. We won't do it next year, will we? And then we did. And then last year in COVID, we said, well, we can actually do a film festival during COVID, unlike all of the other theatrical events that we couldn't really do because we had the virtual option, and we were able to sell 40 tickets to a showing in a 300-seat theater and keep everybody safe and spaced. So now we've decided from this year on, well, we better make this part of what we do. So you can look for us at thez.org. That is our website for the Greater Theater, and that will point you to other things. And Proteus Film Festival is part of our annual Proteus Festival, which also features new theater works and new music and a slew of other creative activities over about a 3 or 4 week period beginning in mid-September.
Great. Thanks, Bart. Everyone's kind of touched on, how, your festival has adapted to COVID. A lot of, I think all of your festivals have, that virtual component. But I want to start with this question with Andy. You're traveling to, large national festivals. How is this kind of, what have you seen larger festivals adapt to? Are they also doing in-person and virtual? Some kind of 50-50 split, 75-25? What is your opinion on that?
Well, first of all, thank you, Michael, and thank you to the VPA for putting this together and your great support of the industry. We could not bring the work we bring without the advocacy from VPA. And first of all, I also want to point out the people that run festivals, all you guys that put them together, it's like a Rubik's Cube. I mean, you've got to hand it to you guys for putting the work together. It truly is a work of art unto itself to assemble the guests, the films, the tone, the logistics. It's like making 5 movies at one time, which is complicated enough. So I hand it to all you guys, the directors of the festivals, big and small, for what you do to make it happen. And for me in Virginia, if I could just touch on this, that we are partners with over 33 film festivals just in Virginia, right? And I love going to festivals because it really is the fruits of all the labor of all the filmmakers that have finally come together to create this product at the end that we can now, as a communal experience, go and enjoy this, and especially the discussions around it that I enjoy as much as seeing the film. I mean, and it really brings people together in a way that we have such a divided world these days that you can really see different points of view, and it can really open people's minds and open people's eyes, just like music can bring people together. Festivals really have an opportunity to for people to share different points of view. This is why I'm so committed to supporting festivals in Virginia. Now, I can say going to festivals around the world, around the country, for me, it's a marketing opportunity to meet people, try to bring them here to Virginia, right? I can make one example. Recently, 2 years ago, I went to South by Southwest. Had I not attended South by Southwest that year, I would not have forced my way in to see Ethan Hawke and Jason Blum. And that brought the good Lord Bird here, and they spent about $50 million. So for me, it's a marketing trip to try to make friends, to make things happen. In terms of the logistics, most recently, last year, of course, a lot of hybrid activity going on there, Michael. But what's interesting, and we discovered with our local festivals too, is that through a hybrid festival or through an online festival, we've been able to bring in guests that we normally would not have access to, because it's so difficult to fly people in, put them up, make their schedule work. But now they can sit in their pajamas and, participate in a panel. It's really opened up our eyes and our minds to, even after we're beyond this pandemic, that I believe we will always have some kind of hybrid model where we can have access to people that we normally would not have. But I just want to thank all of our partners in the festivals here represented and all around the state, and what it means to the relationships we build when these filmmakers come, and the work you do to make it happen. I hand it to you.
Great. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
So, Jody, with the Virginia Film Festival, what is your in-person versus virtual split right now? Or what was it? I'm sorry, what was it last year, I should say?
Oh, well, last year it was entirely virtual, with the exception of 2 drive-in movie theater experiences that we offered. So we had an urban experience at the Dairy Market, which was a new market that was in the old Dairy Mart building that had just been established, and we were in the parking lot projecting on the side of the building, and that's sort of in the heart of Charlottesville, Midtown, and we screened there every night of the festival, so for 5 nights. And then we were at the Morven Farms, which is a historic farm, just surrounded by the mountains, and absolutely stunning venue. And we screened a lot of our our opening night and our centerpiece and our closing night film out there. And they both were incredibly well attended. Everything else was virtual. We decided to do the vast majority of our 43 conversations that we held were pre-recorded. And part of that was bandwidth for staff as we were trying, you just like you're on this call. If we were doing so many 5-6 calls a day, that would have been somebody sort of monitoring it, doing the back end of the Zoom call and everything like that. So, we had a conversation with Linda Hamilton, Ben Menkowitz moderated a conversation with Annette Benning. We had a conversation with the good Lord Birdcast and Ethan Hawke. So we had some extraordinary artists, as Andy was suggesting. A lot of people were very willing to have these conversations because they didn't have to go through the hassle of flying in and staying 2 or 3 days. It made that really, really easier. On the flip side of that, I'm excited about doing 100% in-person festival this year. Which is what we're hoping, God willing, if things don't change too dramatically in the next couple of weeks, that we're going to present. We will have all the COVID mitigation policies in place and hope to be at the Paramount Theater on the downtown mall, in Culbreth on the grounds of the University of Virginia, in the Violet Crown. I will share that we've cut back on the number of venues this year because we just don't anticipate going from 0 to 60 the first year back. I think that there's still going to be some people that are hesitant to go back to the theaters. And we are bringing back one of the drive-in movie theater experiences outdoors at Morven Farms. For anybody who still just doesn't feel safe returning back to the theater, even if they are masked. For me, although I share with Andy that presenting virtually opened up, made the festival accessible to some people that might not have been able to attend, and allowed for some conversations we might not have been able to book. I still feel that the festival experience for me is in person. That energy of a shared communal experience of watching a film together, to me is vastly superior than staying in your home and watching it on your laptop or casting it on your television set. The engagement, the interaction with the filmmakers and all the artists that we bring in with our community, as Enjoli mentioned, is lost virtually. It's not quite the same thing. We were proud to pivot last year and to present what we did. I was incredibly proud of my team for doing it, and it was pretty seamless in terms of the presentation. But we all miss being in person, without a doubt. And I hope we're able to return to that soon, all of us.
Thanks, Jody. Moving over to the Richmond International Film Festival, Heather. You've got music and film going on at the same time. What is your kind of split between in-person and virtual?
You're on mute, Heather. You're on mute, Heather.
Hi. Last year, we ended up, planning the festival, I think 3 different times. And where we landed was about 90% virtual and about 10% in person. And like Jody and, all of us here, we had to pivot very quickly and do a lot of pre-recorded Zooms and all of that good stuff. It was a ton of work, but it, came off pretty seamlessly, for the time that we had. I think this year we are doing about the opposite. So 90% will be in person next week, and with a few virtual offerings like at Flow and some other things. And then we're of course doing a lot of outdoor events for the music side. So masks will be, required to be worn at our indoor events. And, there was a lot of things that we had to consider because we're kind of right in this moving shuffle right now between what's happening with the numbers. So, we are following things very closely, but as of now, we are gonna, request that everybody wear masks, whether they've been vaccinated or not. And then for our outdoor events, if they feel more comfortable in masks too, then by all means. And of course, last year, I have to give it to the Bird Theater, they were just amazing because the few select events that we did, we were at the Bird, and we were able to work together to bring in, some special cleaner through a reach out that I had done through DC, New York. And it was just incredible. Everybody pulled together to make sure it was extremely safe. Of course, we had the social distance seating chart and lots of different things like that we had to incorporate, but it came off well. But I'm with Jody, the idea of a film festival is really about bringing people together, both from our patron side of, those who want to experience the festival, and our, industry professional side, people, it's very different when you are in a room together, able to meet somebody in person and talk business, talk creative ideas and future collaborations. And you just don't quite get that, in a virtual setting. So we're thrilled to be able to do it, in person again next year. I think everybody wants to be at the theater. I have been overwhelmed we're selling out of events, and it's pretty extraordinary, the energy, people just really needing to get back into the theater and in creative environments in person. I feel that energy every day when I'm working with my team or, our guests, that will be here, and then our, locals right here to Virginia. And so that's very inspiring to me and encouraging, and so, we're really looking forward to a great week.
Thanks, Heather. I'm looking forward to it. Bart, are you doing any of yours virtually?
So last year we made everything available virtual, but we also showed everything live in the theater. And with that, we had about an even split of ticket sales between the two. However, everybody who came to the theater was just like, wow, it's great to be at a theater. Now, we were doing this late September, early October. So it was 6 months after our, 5-6 months after our initial shock for everyone of shutting down and going home. And it was the first event we had done since March 13th, I think, which was the day we had shut down previously. And in that intervening time, we did a lot, and we worked hard on making the place safe and making sure that we did those things in the right way. And the few networking and social things we did were outside on a terrace that we have. And so that was last year. This year we are returning to fully in person, and we're not intending to show anything online. With that said, we also do a lot of other events, and we're drawing on our experience doing that. We are requiring this year all of our patrons to provide proof of vaccination, or if they're not vaccinated, to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of the event start date that they're at. So for any screening with that. And we've been working on that actually for about the last week or so, on developing what our protocols are for that. We've looked at a few things. I'm happy to talk with other folks if you want any of our insight on what it takes to get that done. Some of that is coming from experience at a couple of other arts things that I'd gone to this summer that were requiring that, and already in New York State there were some things requiring that over the summer. And so this year we're intending to only show things live, and part of how we're adapting to that is we are showing so from Thursday through Sunday each week, as I said earlier, we are only showing 12 films. So each block, we have two different blocks of short films that each take about an hour. So it's a short period of time that you're in a theater. We have two features. They're each around 75, 80 minutes. They each get their own block of time. And then we show them so that we're only doing one showing on Thursday and Friday. We're doing a double on Saturday, but there's 2 hours in between for the theater to clear out. We have we upgraded last summer with some plasma air purifiers in all of our rooftop units that are hospital grade air purifiers. So all of these public health concerns. That's kind of what's underlying. That's the subtext of the question, I think. So what are we doing? That's how we're doing it. And with that, incidentally, we're not requiring masks because we are requiring the proof of a COVID vaccination or a negative test. But we are strongly encouraging masks, and all of our staff will be masked at all of the festival events. I think one of the things I've noticed over the last few weeks in our local area, for example, at grocery stores or retailers that have a sign out front saying we strongly encourage masks, I would say 80 to 90% of the patrons are wearing masks. So no real problem with that. And again, as we're requiring a proof saying that, hey, you're vaccinated or you've just recently had a negative test, we're not going to require masks, but all of our staff will be masked, and we're going to strongly encourage masks. But again, we're showing all of those films. We're making sure that we're showing them in person, and we're stretching them out over a 3-week period so that everybody has the chance to come and see them and do it at their own tempo and feel comfortable with it. But to echo what Jody and Heather, I think, have already said, yeah, we want to be in person. We want as many people there. We miss having people in the theater. I miss seeing people and just chatting with people before and after a show and all of those kinds of things. So we really, as much as we also, I will agree with what Andy said earlier, doing things virtually, not just a film festival, but a number of other things that we did this past year, it led to some great connections. And there's some component of that I think will move forward. I think what the pandemic has done as far as that is concerned is it's fast forwarded that kind of change. I don't think, and I don't think Andy was saying this either, I don't think any of us are saying, boy, that's the way that we want to do it. But it does add a dimension that we're going to be able to explore and add. But I just can't wait to do it in person again.
Great, thanks, Bart. Enjoli, are you keeping any of the virtual screenings to the Afrikana?
Absolutely. So I would say ours is maybe about 70-30. We have all of our shorts for the most part will be virtually offered. We typically on the Saturday afternoon kind of go to all the galleries along the Arts District on Broad and have a multitude of short films playing there. We don't know if it's time to invite people into those kind of smaller gallery spaces just yet to sit and watch films for an extended amount of time. So offering those virtually, but we do agree that there's a sense of community that is indeed missed. And so we've been thinking through like, what are the ways that we can do that? And for us, that exists outdoors. And so Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're hosting outdoor events. We'll be at Maymont one night, we'll be at the Carillon another night, we'll be at a place called Sankofa Garden on another night. And so those will be our feature-length films that will be on offer, and we'll have like some different experiences happening alongside those to make it feel full and rich, and hopefully get people excited about seeing each other again, but safely. We are strong proponents of sanitizing your hands and wearing your masks. So feel free to please wear them outside if you feel so inclined. One of the indoor experiences we will have though is we were asked to curate a show at Candela Gallery on Broad Street, and that actually opens on Friday. And that show includes, yes, photography, but also moving image work. And so we're excited to have 4 films on view, and that'll be up from September 3rd through October 23rd. So now people have an opportunity to go into the gallery and check that out on their own time. And so I agree with what everyone has said about the additional dimension that the virtual space offers us. It collapses distance, it collapses some of those barriers that make it challenging for people to join in. And so I do agree that that will probably always like be a piece of something that we offer, unless it just turns out to make no sense. But one of the things I am doing is reducing the amount of films that we're offering virtually this year, because I don't think people want to sit and watch 100 films online, right? I think people are ready to just kind of go out and about. So we'll have more, it'll be closer to about 40 films that we'll have on offer virtually. And then hopefully people will be excited to come outside and gather for the feature-length stuff.
Great. So from a technical standpoint, when people are screening or purchasing tickets for your festival, and this goes for everyone, are you able to see like who are Virginians who would have driven to, to your festivals, or, like where geographically those viewers are coming from?
Well, I can answer. But the nice thing about the virtual space is that it's keeping track of all of that, right? It is just inherently built into the system. We use a platform called Eventive for ours. And Eventive just automatically tells you, it's tracking where these people are plugging in from. So that's a wonderful resource and tool, where when we were doing it before that, when we're going through Eventive, we would have to put in, Eventbrite, please put in your zip code, right? Tell us where you're joining from. So it's kind of nice to have a platform that's keeping track of that for you. And it's nice to see that globally, but also regionally, who indeed is coming from DC, who's coming from Charlottesville, who's coming from North Carolina and Tidewater. And so it's wonderful to see like the convergence of people who are just paying attention to you outside of like the Richmond sphere. And so, yeah, I found that resource coming through the virtual platform has been very helpful.
Yeah, that's got to be, from a marketing perspective, very insightful for promotional situations.
For sure.
Are any of the other festival directors seeing that kind of data? Hate to get this granular with technology, but
you're on mute, Heather.
Dang it. We use Eventive as well. They're amazing. We've been with them for a few years, and it's a great example of a company within our industry that really transitioned and met the need, the demand for, last year. In addition to that, Ito and Theo, that's a father-son team, he used to run a festival, so he deals with more of the complex issues. And yeah, you can do all kinds of wonderful things through their system. I know, Jody, you guys use the university system, right?
We used Eventive.
Okay. I found it to be very costly, though. It can really build up. But it's a wonderful resource to have, for sure.
It's interesting because Eventive, it can add up, like, especially if your feed have a ton of features, it goes over the allotment, it can add up. But there's another platform, and I'm blanking on the name, but it's like Eventive, it's Event something. And it was interesting to talk to all of these different virtual platforms that were emerging and see like just the gradient of pricing structures. Like this other company where the entry fee for Eventive is around $1,000. The other entry fee was $5,000. And then it was a $500 a month maintenance fee. So by the time we spoke to Eventive sounded like just like a dream. I was like, sign us up. And they've been able to provide, for all intents and purposes, the same level of quality in terms of experience. And I love the fact that you have this father-son team who are very accessible, willing to hop on a call and help out. And so it's been nice to have that part of it too, where it doesn't feel so commercial and so big. That you can't build relationship. Yeah. Great.
So Jody, you were telling me about some of the challenges and programming your festival this year. How has COVID changed the circuit as a primer to distribution deals?
Well, first of all, one of the greatest challenges I'm dealing with is 2 barking dogs in my house in the background right now. So I've been on mute for a large part of this. And I can't leave the screen to go deal with it, and no one else is in the house right now. But to answer your question, we're not a market festival. And so, nobody's come to the Virginia Film Festival and really gotten a deal. We have connected people that perhaps have led to deals and relationships. I mean, one of the famous stories is Mark Johnson met Vince Gilligan, judging a Virginia Film Office Screenwriting Award many, many years ago. And that led to a pretty productive collaboration that spawned 2 major series, I think. So there's always that kind of opportunity. We've known other people that have connected at our festival as well, but there aren't really distribution deals happening at our festival. And those are likely to happen at festivals like Telluride in Toronto and other areas that are closer to being market festivals than we are. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong with my colleagues on the phone, but I don't know that you guys are fostering real distribution deals out of them.
We did something different this year in that regard because we're always like you, Jody. I mean, there's a lot of those conversations that go on behind the scene, and we just create the platforms and hope that it happens instead of actually facilitating them in a formal way. But this year we expanded in that regard, and I'm really excited about it, both on the music and film side. We cut a deal with a company called Boone Castle, and it's a record label and also Media Tribe. And so they are going to be locking in with us on an international level and across the country in terms of being able to scout and offer potential record deals. They also have different packages depending on where they are, whether it be promotion, branding, artist development. So nobody knows. Well, actually, we just released that in a press release last week. The next thing I'm about to tell you, we haven't officially released yet, so you guys are the first to hear it. But I, on the film side, did a deal with Gravitas Ventures, which is one of the largest, indie film distributors in the country. And so now with them joining efforts with us in this new collaboration, they are on the grand jury. So they're represented on the narrative feature side, and we're a competitive festival. So everybody that gets in, they go through multiple rounds of judging. So we don't curate in that regard. And then they go on and they're competing for top honors with the grand jury. And so for our top narrative features, they will get consideration from Gravitas this year on the distribution side.
Thank you. Andy, do you want to weigh in on the circuit and how it's affecting distribution deals?
I'll be honest with you, that's not really my end of the business. I like to make the stuff and create jobs. The distribution thing, it changes every 6 months. The waterfall of financing a movie all the way through to the back end of trying to get your money back. I mean, it's just an ever-changing environment. The streaming deals change every 8 months. So trying to keep up with the distribution model is just not in my focus. I want people to come here and make this stuff and employ people and ring cash registers.
That's good to me. So back to the directors, from a filmmaker perspective, and I'm sure there's a lot of filmmakers on this call tonight, what is the biggest obstacle for festival acceptance?
The biggest obstacle. I mean, I guess, of course, you want to have a great film, right? So there's that part. I'll say for me, just in terms of blanket things, timing, right? If you have a short film, I would prefer that your film not be 55 minutes, because when I'm thinking about how I'm programming a film, I really want to create a space where I don't like the idea of putting 8 and 9 short films together. I really, my maximum is 5, because I think at some point the audience can't digest what the storyteller is really trying to say by watching 8 or 9 films at once. And I want to make those 5 films digestible as well. So when you get into a space where now you're at 40, 50 minutes for one film, and then you have one that's 20 and one that's 8 and one that's 18, it can become a little lopsided. So, I always tell, I teach a class at VCU, and one of the things that I tell the filmmakers, the emerging filmmakers, is if you are making a short film, it will be advantageous and programmers appreciate it under most circumstances. When you make that short film under 30 minutes, really more 27 minutes and less is really what people are looking for. And now that we're in the virtual space, Eventive is a great example. When you hit the 30-minute mark, you no longer are read as a short film to them. You shift over into a whole different bracket in terms of how much now the festival programmer has to pay in order to upload that film, right? And so all of these things end up mattering. And so for me, I think that, you know, especially for emerging filmmakers, understanding the editing room is the most important space, leave some stuff on the cutting room floor, and try to have your short film be under 27 minutes is usually my suggestion.
Thanks. It's amazing that the virtual streaming platform is now dictating the length of shorts. Jody, your opinion?
Oh, I would agree with Enjoli. I mean, we actually look for shorter short films because we do bundle them into packages, and sometimes if they're short enough, we'll put them before a feature as well. And you know, once you start getting past 10 minutes, you're unlikely to put it before a feature because it's just too long in the evening, particularly if you're having a discussion with a filmmaker of the feature length immediately following. So, you know, I think if filmmakers start making films that are more than 30 minutes long, they should question whether they're making a short or whether they're making a feature length, you know, full film there, and could they have done that? I think that, you know, for us, we've always, you know, part of our mission is to throw a spotlight on filmmaking in Virginia. And I know in the past it's been very difficult because sometimes we get films that don't make the cut. And I've experienced, well, hate mail is strong, but you know, we also do a disservice to filmmakers in Virginia if we play films that aren't of a certain quality. Because you don't want to lower the bar so much. You really want them to be judged on their own merits. And it speaks well of filmmaking in Virginia that we usually have some extraordinary films that we're very proud to screen. And there's certainly no apologies for them whatsoever. You know, I think that that's another thing too. Filmmakers should always be aware that they want to develop relationships with festivals and with programmers because they're going to hopefully be coming back to them in the future. And I feel that's really important. Sometimes you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot as well. And understand that on the programming side, it's very challenging because we get hundreds and hundreds of films that are submitted to the festival, and we can't screen hundreds and hundreds of films. So we have to narrow that down. And at least for us, it's about producing a very balanced program for our audience. And we mean balance almost on every level, the diversity of the program, the diversity of the countries and the areas of the world that we represent, the artists themselves. That's really, really important. And in order to have balance, we have to take all these different things into account. Also, the tone of the program. If everything's dark, you're going to have a really down festival. So you need to try and balance that. And sometimes those films reflect what's actually happening in the world. We're going through a particularly dark time, and it's really fascinating to me to see how many films reflect that out there. And yet people are also growing tired of that, and they want to have some opportunity to celebrate and to have joy too. So you really have to balance that program. And that's one of the challenges that festival directors and programmers face, I think.
Thanks, Jody.
And Michael, if I could just point out real quick too, one thing we didn't mention, that it's such a fertile ground to inspire filmmakers of tomorrow that don't even know they want to be filmmakers, right? I can think of just some amazing examples like Jeff Wadlow in Charlottesville, Jody. Had he not gone to the Virginia Film Festival, he probably would not have become a filmmaker. Richard Kelly from Richmond, Donnie Darko, same thing. Jay Jameson, I know the festival's just inspired a great filmmaker, Jay Jameson. So it just creates this ground that they can go experience films that they normally would not be aware of or think about watching. And it just creates this academic almost opportunity for them to realize they wanted to be a filmmaker and never knew they did. So.
Yeah, great point. Heather, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for filmmakers and getting into your festival?
You know, well, first I'll touch on the length aspect that was discussed. For ours, we're a little bit different. We go towards the Academy, the Oscars, and anything 40 or less is considered a short, and more than that is a feature. So we kind of follow that and try our best not to let the length influence our decision. That being said, you know, we do have to be mindful of certain programming, because oftentimes what happens is it'll come down to, all things being equal, 8 or 10 really solid, compelling films, and we will have to decide because of the scoring being the same, right? And then I'll have to come in and decide, okay, which one can we go with? And then those other components may play into it. Well, we've only got this much space, but outside of that, you know, we are fully open. We are looking for incredible content that we feel will play well at the festival and resonate with our audience, and something that moves us. You know, our themes kind of change year to year. And so we are also sort of tying into the global consciousness that's sort of out there and going on in the world, because, you know, for us, it's very important to tap into that and to create opportunities festival week, all 6 days, where, you know, we can have meaningful discussion. One of the wonderful things about film festivals too is that some of those touchy subjects, you're not often, all of us, afforded the opportunities to really have these kinds of in-depth discussions and get away with it. But under the guise of a theater, and it feels like a safer place oftentimes to do that. And so we never shy away from those conversations. If anything, you know, one of the things we do at RIF is, you know, we'll in some cases go the extra mile, put a big spotlight on it, bring in the policymakers, bring in the experts across nonprofit orgs, you know, or from around the country and right here in Virginia. And all right, let's push up our sleeves and not just enjoy a great film, but let's do something, you know, a call to action, and really keep that movement going. So we love doing things like that too. In terms of obstacles, you know, I really, you know, I think not being prepared, you know, as polished as you can be when you submit your materials, can be a very big obstacle when it comes down to all things being equal, again, between your film and somebody else's. And what does it mean to be prepared? Well, that could be having a really strong EPK where we don't have to, you know, reach out to the filmmaker as we're considering your film amongst a group and, you know, find out, okay, what's the backstory of the director's statement? You know, what inspired this film? A number of different things like that. Sometimes for me, if I'm in a situation like that and we have to break a tie and one gets in over the other, it will come down to a cover letter. And it sounds really simple, but I read those as often as I can, particularly in situations. And we've got a lot of preliminary judges. So it goes through other steps often to get to, you know, me. But when I step in, I really look at the full package. And so if the filmmaker hasn't really prepared and is not putting their best foot forward with some of those small but important details, it can be an obstacle.
Great, thanks, Heather. Enjoli, I know that you've got a hard out at 8, so I'm going to ask you the first question from the Q&A. What genre plays best at your festival?
You know, I don't know that there's an answer to that. I think it kind of speaks to what Jody was saying best. Like, you really want to try to find a balance, and I find that my audience appreciates that. We want moments where, you know, it is a narrative drama and it's something that we can lean into and just kind of look at it through the human experience. We love love. We want to laugh. So we want some comedy, which is what I'll honestly say we get the least submissions for. I find that a lot of the films that come through are weighty, but they're excellent. And so we're happy to have them, but always searching for that other side of the human experience. But when we do find comedies, they play extremely well as well. I'll say, like Heather, our festival is really rooted in like this space of conversation. We don't host a film, especially on the short film side, without a post-screening Q&A. And so, you know, we do love films. I find that the audience appreciates films that gives them a launching pad for meaningful discussion, opening their perspectives a bit, and making sure that, you know, even if you're in a packed theater, you are watching that film alone through your own life's experiences and in your own filtration system. So being able to be in conversation with community opens that that perspective up. So we're always looking for films that really allow for that and allow that space for personal exchange. And that can look like any genre. We have done sci-fi that has been extremely successful, just a ton of things. So it's not one thing. And I'm sorry, that's not like a concrete answer, but it's the truth.
No, I think it's helpful.
You know, Michael, if I could just add on to that in support of Enjoli, I remember one of the most electric opening nights we had was about 9 or 10 years ago. I can't remember what year, and we opened up with Black Swan, and half the audience loved the film and the other half despised the film, and all they could do was talk about it and argue on the way out, but in a, you know, not in an aggressive manner. And the rest of the weekend, everybody continued to talk about that film during the entire festival. And as a director of a festival, I was like, yes, that's great. We've got people talking and passionate about it one way or another. And the people that didn't like the film said, I want to watch the film again. It bothered me so much. I want to figure out why it bothered me. So that's a win in my book when that happens.
So Jody, what genre works best for the Virginia Film Festival? I know in the past you guys have had themes.
No, that's way in the past.
Yeah.
I put a spike through that one. I'm sorry. I get asked about that a lot. I got rid of that after my first year here. And I think that the problem with doing a theme is that you choose a theme in January and the entire world changes 9 months later. You have a baby, you end a war in Afghanistan, you elect the first African-American president, you elect Trump, things change, the world changes, and the theme that you chose 9 months earlier doesn't resonate as strongly as when you chose it. And I think it was an artifice to hang an academic experience around and not really engage a community strongly. And particularly an academic institution, when we study so many different things and we have so many experts, the idea to open up the festival and offer almost everything, films about religion and politics and diversity and from different countries, is really fascinating. And so I think everything plays well at the Virginia Film Festival. I think we have a really passionate audience here that is curious, intellectually curious. They love the discussions afterwards. And the few times that I have a film that we just don't have a discussion, people object to it. And sometimes they say, well, you know, it's okay just to enjoy a film and think about it afterwards. But I think everything plays pretty well here.
Great. I just want to thank Enjoli real quick. She's got to run to another call, but thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I'm going to put Afrikana's contact info in the chat for anyone that'd like to reach out and
Great,
follow
thank
us.
you.
You're welcome.
Bart, what genre has worked well for Proteus?
The films that people have responded most to have been kind of this category of light drama. So not dark, heavy drama necessarily, but, you know, strictly speaking, they're dramatic films. We have had a couple of problematic short films in the last couple of years where they're, you know, we're kind of like, well, this is a comedy, but it is a very dark comedy. So, you know, where do we put that? But we've definitely had over the last 2 years a couple of films that really stand out. We had one that was a short. It was about 37 minutes long last year. That was our grand jury winner, that people came to multiple times, even in the midst of the pandemic, to see. There was a Virginia film, incidentally, which was great to have, and it was a light drama. It was clearly a dramatic film, and it really had, it really got that. And I suspect that we're going to see that same this year. Having seen all of the films that we have, I think our strongest films are a couple that are in that category of, they're strictly speaking dramatic films, but they're not drama in the sense of, well, something like Black Swan. It's nothing that quite that involved, just very good stories. That's what I've really seen. I will say, though, that my tendency as a theatrical producer, I love comedies. I'm not seeing a lot of comedies come across the transom. I wish there were more out there. I just think it's a more difficult genre, maybe, for a younger filmmaker. Again, we have such an emphasis on early career filmmakers, and I think that maybe comedy is something that's more difficult for people to. That's maybe just my sense. It's a little more difficult to tackle, and so I don't see it as much from early career filmmakers. Though we've had a few. I would just say that we get 3 dramas for every 1 comedy we get submitted.
Yeah, I would say that comedy is so very hard to do and to get right. And it's so easy to offend in today's world. But Heather, do you also have a deficit of comedies? And what genre works best for Riff?
We have every genre and we love that. On the comedy side, we have a lot more this year than we have in years past, it was a pleasant surprise. I think we all need a good laugh right now. So we're looking forward to premiering those. In terms of overall genre, though, we don't go with any type of theme for the films that get programmed. We do themes on our end based on the experience of the overall festival, what we're bringing to Richmond and Virginia. In terms of the films themselves, for us, would look at it more like we're split half on the domestic films, half international for Riff. And, so in terms of genre, though, it's everything you can imagine. And we started off with short films years ago, and then we, expanded to the features. And we also, show music videos and episodic as well. But in terms of, the films themselves, it's across the board. Whatever is great, we're going to consider. We also, a lot of film festivals like ours, something that's very important is the number and percentage of films that you curate versus the number of films that you take out of your submissions. And that really is because, people want to know that if they're submitting to a festival, that it's actually being considered and that they're not going up against all these other films that, maybe it's a political thing and they're going to get in over their film. For us, one of the things that I love more than anything, and I take very, very serious about what I do, is we can have Oscar award-winning filmmakers, stars, and then we can have emerging filmmakers. Nobody gets favorite. It really comes down to the quality of the film.
Great, thanks, Heather. Some interesting questions are coming through, so I'd like to just kind of burn through with short answers if I could. Stephen Kolb asks, at 64 minutes, is a film more difficult to slot than a 55, 57, or a 60-minute film? Yes or no, Jody?
I think once you're up at that length of film, I look at how am I going to fill a slot and how am I going to make a program. So if you have a film that's too short that you're screening alone, you better have a really incredible panel so that you can make an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Otherwise, people, are going to be like, well, I showed up, the film was 27 minutes long, the discussion was 15 minutes, and I'm out of here. It doesn't seem like a full program. So it wouldn't, if we were screening a film that was 55 minutes long, that would be fine. If it was 64 minutes long, that would be fine, because that's a length of time that you can build a panel around and create an experience for an audience, from my perspective.
Great, thanks. Bart?
Sorry, it takes a second to find the mute button, like I've just started using Zoom. I would largely agree with Jody there that one of the things with this, sometimes when putting together a festival, if I could compare it to, it's almost like putting together a college admissions class. One of the things you're looking for is like this broad spectrum of how many different things can we coherently represent in this. And so at that point we're talking about such a small difference. It's almost like am I getting paid $15 an hour or $15.10 an hour. There's not a practical difference that much at that length for me. There's a much bigger difference if we're talking about a 63-minute film and a 43-minute film. You know, to me, I wouldn't see much of an obstacle there just based on the runtime.
Okay, thanks, Bart. Heather, agree or disagree?
Yeah, I do think it's a little more challenging. You know, I would, if I have that length, it's kind of one and the same, right? But you're going to look at doing some sort of accompaniment with it, whether that be panel, or this year, there were 2 great documentaries, for example, that were about 55 minutes. Occasionally, if we have 2 strong documentaries that come in at that runtime, I'll group them together and do a double doc spotlight. So can't really do that as much on a narrative piece, at least not as successfully. So, you know, again, I think it does come down to the material itself. And more often than not, you know, with that kind of time, I would try and piece together a short before it and then, you know, a panel to follow.
Great, thanks. Next question is, what are the festival directors doing about serving food and drink at the events this year in light of COVID protocols? Start with you, Bart. Do you serve food and drink at the theater?
We do, and I have to say, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to pull up the memo in this policy that we just developed, because I have the luxury of having a full-time staff that's also running the theater, and so I have a concessions manager who has worked on making that decision. I believe we are serving food, but we are not bringing it into the theater. We don't, I shouldn't say food. We're serving drinks, but not bringing them into the theater. They have to be enjoyed outside in our lobby areas.
Okay, thanks. Heather, I know that there were refreshments on sale at RIF last year. Are you just, you're assuming that the theaters are going to continue to do that?
Yes, they are. And the approach we're taking with that is going through additional procedures, cleaning procedures in between every screening. So I had to learn very quickly, you know, last year to allow for a lot more time in between the time slots that we program, so that the special cleaner that they brought in from up north, literally 30 minutes of cleaning out the entire theater. And it worked very well. So we'll be doing that again this year.
Great, thanks, Heather. Jody, are you also assuming that the Paramounts and Violet are going to be serving refreshments?
Yeah, and they have been. I'm not really concerned about that. There's far too many other issues that concern me regarding COVID protocols and mitigation that I'm more concerned about than food consumption. We're still on the fence about how we're going to be presenting parties, or if we're going to be presenting parties, and that concerns me more about the proximity of people mingling and eating and talking than perhaps somebody having some popcorn. You know, we'll see.
Great, thanks.
I'll ask that question 6 weeks from now.
Okay. So Heather, this is a good question for you to talk about flow a little bit. The question is from Cynthia Gayton. How many of you have script writing / filmmaker workshops? Thinking this may familiarize folks with your festivals and their different personalities.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we love the screenwriters, and we have a, you know, separate competition for, you know, on the screenwriting side, and those that get in are, which is like the top 20, become official selection writers, and so they're there all week. We then go on to do flow, which we have, you know, 2 days this year. Saturday, there's about 2.5 hours worth of panels on the film and music side. We also have an incredible one this year on that Saturday, the last one of the day, called New Hollywood. Wonderful casting director from New York will be leading that panel, along with Judah Ray coming in from Los Angeles. It's geared towards writing quite a bit, so it won't actually be a pitch session, but I highly recommend that one this year. And then Sunday during Flow is the full day event where we have pitch sessions available for screenwriters. And so we have a panel of about 12 producers that, and including Gravitas as well on the distribution side, that will be on that panel. And we take signups beforehand. And so if a writer has a script that they are trying to generate interest in, highly recommend being a part of the pitch session. And they have to pitch their script in 60 seconds or less. So it's a little unnerving for some people, but it's great experience to get in there, good practice to do it, and you get immediate feedback from the panel. We also in that same panel have directors who will get 60 seconds to show their director's reel, actors, you know, their reel, everything for immediate feedback. So it's a great opportunity at Flow, and that's on Sunday, September 12th.
Great, thanks, Heather. Jody and Bart, do you have any kind of workshops associated with your festivals?
We don't have workshops per se, although in the past we have done screenwriter session led by someone who teaches screenwriting at UVA, and also some screenwriters we had in during the festival. We do have panels. We have industry panels, and they vary from year to year depending on the guests that we have coming in, and we structure them. Usually they're informed by those guests that are coming in and are structured appropriately.
We did some table readings of scripts 2 years ago with our local chapter of the VPA. We don't have anything programmed this year, and it's on the table. It's already been in discussion for next year. On the theatrical side, we actually have a very active playwriting group that we've developed in conjunction with the Dramatists Guild. We haven't done anything similar yet on the film side, but I'd love to do it. My background myself is as a playwright. So dramatic writing is near and dear to me, and I'd love to add it. Don't have it yet. Look for it in the future.
Thanks. Next question is from Sherry Stroud. If a film doesn't make it into your festivals 1 year, can it be submitted the next year, or skip a year and then submit? So it really comes down to, I guess, what the deadline is for producing the films. And Bart, you can go first.
So because the theater's mission overall is to introduce new works and emerging artists, we do have an expiration on there. So we require that the film has been made in the 26 months leading up to submissions. We open our submissions for a festival in September. Our submissions are open in May, I believe. So you can, if it was completed in the previous 12 months and we didn't select it, then submit it the next year, because you'd still be in that 26-month window. But there is an expiration on it for that reason, because of the theater's overall mission.
Great, thanks. Jody?
You know, Michael, I'm thinking I've got to leave right now. I'm so sorry, but I'm the old adage, leave them wanting more. And we're at about 8:15 now. So I'm going to wish everybody a lovely good night, and thank all of my colleagues for participating, and wish you the best.
Thank you, Jody.
All right.
Heather, do you want to pick up this is the last answer before we wrap for the night?
Sure, yeah. So we went through some changes in that regard in the last year. So we had some filmmakers for 2020 that did not want to participate in the virtual. And so we made some exceptions on the runtime and moved them to this year. And we had a couple of filmmakers this year who were kind of in the same position, that they had gotten into the festival, that we're also going to make an exception for, and they'll be in our 2022 festival. So I think that's a trend that you've seen across the country. A lot of festivals, whereas, you know, we normally have a very strict cutoff time and the completion date of when a film has been completed. Right now, it's a good time. It's kind of in flux, and, you know, there's a lot more leeway in that regard, at least for another year or so, I would say.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to thank everyone for participating tonight. Of course, Jody and Enjoli had to run, but Bart, Heather, thank you so much for your time. I know that it means a lot to the VPA membership and to the filmmaking community to hear directly from the festival directors, because most of the time you guys are kind of hard to track down, especially during the festival.
That's true. Well, I mean, we love having you guys there. And, you know, I hope everybody can jump on the website, rbafilmfestival.com. I put up the link that's our Inventive link that has the flow that we were talking about, and actually the full online schedule. And if folks want to see exactly what's going on all next week, we'd love for them to check it out. Love to see everybody there.
Fantastic. And I just want to give a shout out to another festival, Brian Weekland with the Poe Film Festival. He's been active and asked a question tonight. So good to be hearing from you, Brian. Andy, do you have any parting wisdom for the festivals?
I just want to ask everyone to tell all their friends to buy tickets to these festivals, gather your family. If you want this experience to continue, we have to support them. We can't just talk about it and say how great it was. I went 5 years ago to a festival. You need to support these festivals every year. Bring your friends. And to any filmmakers that are trying to submit, I'll leave you with one heartwarming story. A little movie called Blue Ruin that we filmed in Virginia a few years ago. Great movie, kind of like a Coen Brothers thing. He submitted it to Sundance. First of all, he had like bankrolled the movie by himself, maxed out his credit cards, cashed in his wife's retirement fund to make his little movie, right? And submitted it had 2 kids at home, another baby on the way, submitted it to Sundance, did not get selected. He thought his life was over. He thought his wife was going to leave him. Then his editor finally said, you know what, this edit's really coming together. You should submit it to Cannes. And Jeremy Saulnier, the filmmaker from Northern Virginia, was like, no way, this thing is not a Cannes movie. I could not submit it to Cannes. He said, no, I really think it's good. You should submit it. He submits it to Cannes, gets into Cannes. It's a fortnight selection to Cannes. He goes to Cannes to see the movie for the first time. The final edit he saw that movie was on the big screen at the Cannes Film Festival in France, right? And he's looking at the film with his buddy, the lead actor, Macon Blair. And they're looking at the movie for the first time, the complete color corrected. He's going, man, this is pretty damn good. And, 5 minutes later, after the film was shown, he's pulled up into a suite at the Cannes Film Festival at Radical, buys his movie, right? Fast forward to the rest of the year that transpires. The movie gets a lot of buzz. It goes to the Virginia Film Festival. Then the very next year, because he submitted it as a partial to Sundance before, it was picked up at Sundance the next year. And he was like the darling of the festival. So just don't give up as filmmakers, as screenwriters, as actors. The whole trick, man, is you do not stop. That's all I can say.
And we're done with that. Thank you, Andy. Everyone have a good night.
Bye. Thanks.
See you at the festival.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.